There we go. So, hello, Vlad. You are here to show off Jarl, and this is something I forget where I came across it. I feel like it was either in the newsletter or maybe on Reddit or something. But then I hopped onto your Discord. I took a quick look, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm super excited to hear about this. And so I'll hand it over to you to tell us about Jarl.
Cool. So yeah, my name is Vladimir. I'm going to present about a product called Jarl. You can also call it Jarl. It's a colony builder / simulator in kind of fantasy Viking world that I'm making with Bevy and Rust. And if you're curious, you can follow this like social links and learn more about the project. I guess I will start with maybe like talking 1 minute about myself. So I've been coding for like roughly 15 years. I don't have like any experience in game dev. My background is in kind of like natural languages, ML, backend data, and stuff like that. And a couple of years ago, I got really interested in learning Rust and graphics programming, and I started this project as a kind of like hello world to try Rust and some shaders and things like that. And it evolved into something I'm going to present. So let me start. I have a couple of slides. Let me start with kind of like a brief product summary. Like I said, it's a colony builder, and it's inspired by games like RimWorld, Valheim, Majesty, and stuff like that. It's like a pet project, which I'm developing solo, and sometimes I also collaborate with one external artist. Like I said, started a couple of years ago to learn Rust and graphics programming. Originally, I actually was using GFX or Rust, but then I ported it to Bevy and WGPU. It runs on PC, Apple devices, and Steam Deck. And a lot of people ask about multiplayer. Maybe there will be some multiplayer, but I don't have like any information to share right now. And in the game itself, what player can do, the player can have controls a character. It can explore map, interact with like different objects or creatures on the map. It can collect resources, like fight with monsters, and the center of attention will be like a colony that you can build, defend, explore, expand, and like interact with all the NPCs that are living in your colony. And I'm going to talk about like three main parts that game built on top, and we'll try to explain how they are implemented. So the first part is like a world map, and like in terms of like a data model, world map is pretty simple. It's just the layers of integer grids that contain information about like surfaces or some regular objects like walls and mountains. And in addition to integer grids, you also have like a list of entities, like irregular structures, like, I don't know, some furniture or stuff like that, and different creatures or characters on the map. On the right side, you can see UI of LDTK that I used to kind of like edit the map. It's not the only way to generate the map, but it's really handy for debugging. Essentially, it's a tool which you can use to edit those grids or entities and then output the result as a JSON with all the metadata about like tile sets and other stuff. And on top of this data, you like three important things for the map are tiler, spatial index, and navigation grid. So the tiler is essentially just like a functionality that giving surroundings of some tile, it will tell you like what should be the sprite of the tile. And it's important to kind of like decorate the map and like make transitions nicely between different like sprites. And auto tiling rules is also something you can create in LDTK, and I'm sure there are a couple other tools for that. The other important part of the map is the spatial index. It's basically a system that can answer questions really quick, like given like location and radius, give me all the items or creatures or line of sight blockers or something like that. And the spatial grid system I use is really simple. It's just like a regular grid where for every cell I store a list of things, and then we recompute it every frame for like all the dynamic things, and for static things we just track when something was like spawned or deleted. And the last part that is kind of essential for the map is navigation grid. Again, really simple. It's just like a lattice structure grid that can quickly generate the path between A to B, and it's used, as the name suggests, for navigation of the characters. So the next important part of the game is like items and structures on the map. They are also extremely simple. The main thing about them is they're very asset driven. Like on the right side, you can see like how they represented in meta file in run format, and every time you change something, you can it's automatically reloaded, and you can play with like different characteristics of items or structures. You can change the graphics or like play with parameters, and it's really handy to have that part of the game asset driven. And in terms of how they represent it in the game, it's basically just like one entity per item, structure, or like block. And to spawn or like delete them or like do any interaction, it's really handy to use command pattern to like send events, and then some system will handle them. And we'll talk about it a little bit more in the next slides. And the creatures are a little bit more complicated. So they similar to items. They also asset driven, but there are two kind of like important things about them. They have AI part and they have animator part. So the AI in this game is very inspired by how AI is done in the games like RimWorld. So you have like two levels. On first level, you have things like job givers, planner, and tracker. And job is like very high level description of what creature should do. For example, should it like go somewhere, haul things, or attack someone, or harvest resources. It's like very high level. Doesn't really tell how to do it, but just tells the character that it should do this. The job giver is the system that answers the question who should do what at what time. It basically tells the other systems like, hey, this creature can like defend if there's enemies around, or it can go and recover if it's injured, or it can go and sleep if it's like a nighttime. So the job giver just can enable all of these actions for a creature. The planner is a thing that reorders all of these jobs that were assigned to a character, and it's like a ranking system, and you can plug things like behavior trees or GOP or maybe like some fancier machine learning algorithms to decide what each character what's the most important thing for character to do at any moment. And the last part of this, like a high level, is a tracker, is essentially where you store state for each creature, like all the jobs assigned, what's the most important job at this moment, and what are the steps of that job. And so for AI, the next level are steps. Steps are like extremely detailed, like a physical things that characters should do at every tick of the game. And there are only 2 steps in the game, and everything else kind of like described through them. There's a navigation step that tells well, from how to go from A to B. It's like a place where, for example, the character computes the path, maybe follows some formations if there are any other units with that character, or this step also contains information like how to complete navigation. Is like, should I be in some area, or should I just touch something, and stuff like that. So it's very configurable, but there are only 2 of these steps. And the second step is play animation. Again, it's extremely configurable, so you can tell like what animation to play, what's the like a play mode, like is there like any speed up for that animation, or things like what else should happen when I enter the step or when I finish the step. Like, for example, you can say equip the weapon when you enter attack animation step, or you can tell like find a tool or pick up item or stuff like that. So it's like only one type of the step, but you can customize it for some very specific tasks. And the step runner is just like a system that can read the current step of the creature, update it, and then update like a physical word. Like, let's say tell movement systems like what's the forward vector for this creature. And the second big part of creatures is animation system. So on the right side, you can see how animation is represented in a sprite. Basically, it's layers of frames, and for every frame, you can also have like tags that tells the three things like action, direction, and like events. So the way Animator works is it has like two types of events. Like you can send event to tell Animator, like an internal event, like to tell Animator if it should like play some specific animation, or should it reset to default animation, which could be like idle. Or you can tell Animator to enable or disable layers, and you can, for example, say when you pick up some item, like we will enable the layer for that like armor set or something like that. So it's really handy. And also Animator can, while it's playing animation, it can output events to the external kind of like systems. So for example, you can tell Animator to spawn a hitbox on a certain frame, or start like a sound or some particle effects when you, for example, walk on certain on a certain surface. So it's just very kind of like handy to structure it like that. So far, Sprite was working okay for this kind of stuff, but maybe later we'll switch to like some better authoring tool for this. And there is a third system that's kind of related to creatures, is avoidance system. I'm not going to talk about it much. It's pretty simple. If navigation system kind of like creates like a rail for a character to follow, avoidance system tries to make sure it doesn't bump into some dynamic obstacles. So those were like three systems, sorry, three big areas of functionality in the game. And now I'm going to kind of like share how it's built with Rust and Bevy. So like I mentioned in the beginning, I'm using Bevy, which was working really well. And I'm using ECS, app, asset, built-in UI and text renderer, and render graph. And I'm also using a couple of third-party plugins, Rapier, Hanabi using, and Inspector. And the cool part is Hanabi using also made by same person. Other than Bevy plugins, I'm also using like some other crates to do like integration with fmod, have like some nice features for enums, sortie, as you can tell, and parse ASPRAD files. The way ECS system is used is basically for everything that all the functionality that needs to run and update a lot of entities, like almost all of them in the same frame or on the same tick, I put it into systems. Like you can imagine like AI and animation are done as normal ECS systems. But for things that happens really rarely, like, you know, spawning something or deleting or doing some interaction, it only happens on a fraction of entities at a time, and it's really handy to implement it as events with like a command pattern. So another cool thing about events is if you try to, for example, implement spawning an object as a method on some, you know, some function, or sorry, on some struct, spawning an object will require, like in reality, a lot of input information. You can think of like assets, some graphics, some like precondition checks. So it's like unsurprising if it would be like 20, 30 parameters to do that. So if you think of like putting spawning object call into multiple places, it's really not that ergonomic to pass all this like information in that call. But if you move it to its own event handler and you can send events to that handler, it will be like a lot easier to manage complexity that way. So events also used to kind of like implement factory or dependency, or avoid really complicated dependency injection. So those are things that work really well, and things that don't really well so far with Rust and Bevy is, I guess, not surprising for everyone. There's like a lack of good UI solutions for us. It would be really good to have something asset-driven for UI. Right now, if you build UI with Bevy or most of other frameworks, every time you change something, you have to recompile. And recompiling Rust programs isn't really fast. Like if it takes 15 to 20 seconds, it's all it can kind of kill your imagination and be really hard for iterating on something. The second problem is also a lack of for this particular project is lack of animation and authoring tools. Like if you want to combine your animation with like certain like hitboxes or hurt boxes or like any other metadata, there is just no tool for that. Maybe I didn't find anything. There is like a tool called Tiger, which was the closest, but it's still in very early development. The last part I want to talk about is some custom quote unquote tech I built. So in this game, I use like a custom renderer for all the lighting, and it's basically based on ray marching. It works with both direct and indirect light. And the way it works, we compute SDF, then we split split our screen into 8x8 pixel probes. We compute direct light only for one random point in each probe, and that point is jittered between frames. Then we kind of like resample it to get indirect light. And when we do resample, we take into account like occluders and all that information from SDF. Then we accumulate 8 frames from the atlas and apply some kind of like a denoise. Here it's like basic lateral filter converted to sRGB because the other targets are in sRGB. And then we compose it with all the other layers with like sprite information, and then we do some post-processing to kind of like I don't know, like add custom effects. And that works so far pretty good. It can run on anything that's at least has like a 1060 performance or higher. It's like not the fastest implementation, but it works okay for development. There are better techniques like recent Radiance Cascades that worth to try. They're much faster than that. Maybe that will be implemented in one of the future versions. And that system is open source. You can find it on my GitHub. And it kind of in the game, it gives this kind of like soft, light, grounded, cozy look that I think adds a lot of atmosphere. And that's all for the presentation part. And I want to just give a quick demo of the game. Just want to double check. Can you see my screen?
Yes, all good.
Perfect. So I'm going to be doing demo using Stadia controller. The game can run with keyboard and mouse, but it's just easier to use controller.
Sure. We have one person just mentioning love the 2D lighting, and I think that's like one of the first things I saw as well. Like, okay, now we're seeing it here. Oh my gosh, it's so cool. Looks like the effects that are on the screen. It makes it look really different than other 2D games, I think.
That's nice to hear. So this is how the game works right now. I wouldn't even call it a game. It's kind of a pile of different functionalities. It's not like really connected right now into something playable, but you have like all your debug layers that you can use to like enable like different information, like occluders, navigation grid, and stuff like that. So that's like very handy for debugging. Then you can control the day of time of the day. You can like customize color and something else, and then there is like a UI to change the lighting effects. Like if you add, I don't know, more direct light and subtract indirect light, you can configure it through this UI. So we control a player in the game. So we control a character in the game, and like we can walk, pick up some stuff, and we have like a very basic UI where you can see what's currently on a player. And once I pick up some item, you can also have like a quick access to all your inventory. And if I pick up the tool and select it, I can also see things that I can build. Like, for example, you can build stuff like walls and maybe add some more lighting. And I can also try to break it, and then it will spawn some of the resources that were spent on it. The other part, and let me make it a little bit brighter, the other part of the game is other creatures and NPCs, and the AI part of the game I was talking about, it goes through major overhaul. So not everything is yet implemented, but you can say like you can basically navigate. There's like no job giver, so you need to, right now, the debugging mode, you need to tell your character what to do. So you can tell them to navigate or attack some monsters, or for example, harvest resources. And this will work exactly as I was explaining. It will create a job that I can even show in the debugging layer. And then that job will be prioritized. It will be turned to specific steps. Sorry, the jobs are, I think, here. So for example, you can see once I tell it to collect resource, you can see the current job definition, all the parameters, and then the job runner, or so step runner, will go through all the steps and tell exactly what to do at any moment. And I can probably show stuff that is animation driven. So right now I enabled hitboxes and hurt boxes, and once I play attack animation, you can see like on a certain frame, it spawns a hitbox at the place where I'm aiming right now. I think that's all. And I wonder if anyone has any questions.
Okay, so yeah, this is super cool. I really like seeing like these debug layers of everything that you have combined together. And so like as you go and attack something, or you go and do a job, then you can see, okay, like what's on the queue, what's happening there. And so one thing that this definitely makes me think of is like the way that I hear about the development of Dwarf Fortress is just add more features, add more features, add more features. And I'm kind of curious, how do you balance what you're doing here with end user design? And so, for example, if a player were to come along and like try this out and play it, how are you balancing the complexity of like the job system or anything else that's happening in the world with what their goals as a player are?
How do I balance in terms of like priorities to what build next?
Well, maybe like as a player, if I were to come play this, like what's my experience geared towards, or like what's your intention for my experience?
Got it. That's like something I probably can't really answer right now. Like I would say I have like some goal that I want to make the project feel like, and then like every couple of weeks when I have time to work on it, I kind of prioritize things like and try to figure out what's more important, and then I experiment. So a lot of here is a result of like trying certain things in multiple ways until it starts feeling good. So for example, a couple of like months ago when I was experimenting with building mechanics, my first idea was that it would be good to have something similar to the kingdom. Like you come to a certain area, you press a button, and it will spawn a building. You don't really build it from blocks. So I built that system first, and I stuck in the wall, and it didn't feel that great. And I tried to experiment with other systems that's similar to like Minecraft or Terraria, where you actually build stuff from blocks. So it's kind of like experimentation at this point. The game is like very, very early in development stage, so a lot of here is like prototyping. Also, my character's stuck in the wall. I'm just gonna restart. So yeah,
I mean, like I think what I see here is like there's like a ton of really solid groundwork that you have, and like a lot of systems seem to be like in place, and like yeah, the fact that you can go do jobs and you've been thinking through these systems really does seem like there is quite a lot that exists already. And so actually maybe to add on to that question a little bit is like, what's one system that you're really excited to implement or you're really excited to see but hasn't really started up yet?
Yeah, so I think all the NPC interaction would be pretty cool. There's like no interaction at all, but like when it's a simulator based building game. So like once you build the game, build the base, it would be cool to see how the NPCs have their own like life schedule, how they interact with each other. If you like bought, for example, equipment from blacksmith, you you pay him money, and then he can spend this money to decorating his house and stuff like that. Or after hard work during the day, like all the NPCs go into like the tavern and spend money on like alcohol or something. So it would be cool to have like some simulation like that. That's why I'm like having a really high emphasis on AI, making it like trying to make it ergonomics. Like it will be easy in the future to describe all this complex chains with like a simple blocks that can be reused. And it's not here yet.
Or I was just gonna say that's like sort of what I'm thinking, is because like as I see all these complex systems interacting with one another, it makes a ton of sense that you'd have like an NPC like high level layer that the player experiences, where they walk into a village and they see stuff happening. It's not just the one lumberjacks on their like path back and forth from the tree. And so that's really cool to hear.
Cool. Anything else?
So I think that's all for questions for now. I would definitely love to see this as progress continues in the future. And so I know you have a Discord server. Looks like you have a website as well, so people can go check that out. So Vlad, thank you very much for showing this off, and I hope to catch you again next time.
Cool. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about it.
Absolutely. All right. We'll be back in just a second with Kvark, who's going to show us a little bit more about Blade now that they've